Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. One of the most beautiful things about my bismuth art career is that I learned a lot of life lessons while doing it, and most of the life lessons that I learned from doing bismuth art have nothing to do with bismuth, with art, or with the making of it. Most of the lessons are actually more social than anything else. So here's some Buddhas that I recently made. I recently, kind of a trade secret at the moment, figured out how to pour the Buddhas without making a mess on the back of the Buddhas, right? Bismuth has a tendency to expand, and I've done all sorts of experiments to minimize that in terms of purifying the bismuth, with possible alloys to use, with anodizing, with sanding it after it's done, with smoothing it out, and it's kind of complicated to explain anyhow. But anyways, so there's a lot of experimentation, a lot of I can't tell you how many times I've hurt myself trying to experiment with this stuff, with burns, high temperatures, chemical burns, electrical burns, among other things, and sometimes I'm not sure if it's heavy metal toxicity, but I've gotten very sick doing this, especially when I was messing with the alloys with tin and antimony, and I haven't done anything with lead yet, because even I'm afraid of that stuff. And given how sick I was from antimony poisoning, I'm not about to try just yet. But, so I've gone through a lot, right? And it goes to show that anytime we look at something, a lot has to go on behind the scenes for that show to go on, right? So I was just reading the news about some people going to Taylor Swift concerts, and they want to put on these diapers because they don't want to go to the bathroom during a Taylor Swift concert. And I'm thinking to myself, God, I never heard of dry fasting before. I'd rather do that than have to shit myself or piss myself at a Taylor Swift concert, right? Can you imagine pissing and shitting yourself? And maybe, I know it's a very long odds, but Taylor Swift would just like to see you for whatever reason, and she comes up to you, oh my God, you smell like piss and shit. Although I guess if she's sexually attracted to you, that might be a turn on as well, right? So who knows? But behind the scenes, there's a lot that Taylor Swift has to do besides sing and write songs, right? I guarantee you that, right? And so that ever since I've suffered the chemical burns, the all-nighters, the mercury toxicity, among other things, from doing this stuff, it makes me really appreciate that what I see is not all that is to see. And that's great. Actually, there's another thing. So right now that I figured it out, I've poured the bismuth, I've anodized it, but that's the easy work. The hard work is to lug a ton of bismuth to the show! And it really is, because at least this stuff is fun, right? The lugging, packing and lugging, because you can't just throw this all into a box, right? And lugging it all into to the art show, figuring out how to get it out of my car, or depending on the situation. I have a couple partners that I sometimes go with, so and then we got to find the right time to carpool together, because parking there is really tricky, right? And that's actually a harder part than pouring the art, because that's not fun anymore. Fun part's already done, right? And so it just goes to show that often the hardest work is the least rewarding, right? Anyway, I thought I would point all that stuff out. Now, having said that, one thing that I find really rewarding is that when I look back at previous art shows or previous all-nighters doing the bismuth, I never seem to remember all the frustrating times, right? Yesterday I kept spilling while pouring into the mold. I have a very special way of pouring and scraping to get the backs of the mold to look like what they look like. And yesterday I kept messing it up for whatever bizarre reason. And then I burned myself a couple times, and I was really sleep deprived. It was really my doing. The problem is that I really wanted to get some stuff done with the bismuth before I left for work, because I knew if I left for work with the bismuth being a disaster, it would weigh heavily on me in the office. I know myself too well. That's something that I probably should get help for as well. But you know, part of the reason that I love doing the bismuth art and going to art shows and selling at consignment shops is to help supplement my income, stabilize my income a little bit. But at the same time, all the all-nighters are not doing wonders to my productivity and my performance at work. So it's a double-edged sword. And almost everything in life is a double-edged sword, right? That's another lesson that I learned. Anyway, I spent 10 months doing bismuth, but all the lessons I learned from bismuth, most of the lessons I learned from doing bismuth have nothing to do with bismuth at all.